It's on. Okay. My goal is to show all of you as UX professionals why it's advantageous to think like photographers. Now, I'm a UXer, but I'm also a photographer myself. But originally, I was an architect in my past life. And architects have a really keen way of representing the stories of buildings through photographs. They call them walkthroughs, but what we can think of as user flows. And one of the really great things about representing photos in this format is that you're really only able to show the most critical and key moments of the user experience. Thankfully, in UX world, this is already kind of happening. A few weeks ago, I had the privilege of attending a workshop led by Chris Risden of Adaptive Path, and he referred to these critical moments as touch points. And what's a touch point? A touch point is basically a specific time and place the user or customer has a need. And I thought, well, what better way to capture and represent these touch points than through photographs? So for example, you're at a doctor's office, you have a need, you want to ask about your insurance. Hopefully, you can go to a medical assistant and she'll ask you, or she'll answer your questions. Or if you're really fancy, maybe you have a kiosk in your doctor's office. Yeah, so, and aside from touch points, something else that photos can tell us more about is the user. So take a look at the photos that your users are taking. What's going on in those photos? Where are people usually in these photos? Are they sitting, standing? Are they driving? God forbid. And this is an artist I met in Thailand over the summer. This is his work environment. And just by looking at this photo, you can already start to ask a lot of design questions based on this. So, for example, look at his hands. They're very obviously accustomed to the grip of a pencil, but what about another piece of technology, a device or smartphone? He has glasses, so is he visually impaired? How might your design change for visually impaired users? What about this woman? This is her work environment. Can't really see it, but she's very busy. She's multitasking. What do you think she's using her smartphone to do the most? Maybe she's taking notes. Maybe she's taking inventory. But maybe this environment isn't really even conducive to using a smartphone for extended periods of time. Maybe she's looking for a better optimized hands-free experience. So again, how can we as UX designers design for that? At this point, people always tend to ask me, they say, Mike, what about videos? And I say, well, videos are great, but they're basically just photos being shown at you at 24 frames per second. So really, it's just photos anyway. But in all seriousness, photos are great. Videos tend to tell us a little too much, I think. I often make the analogy that a photo is like a low-fidelity prototype, and a video is like a high-fidelity prototype. And as designers, we all know we should be spending a little bit more time designing, testing, iterating using low-fidelity prototypes, of course. Another great thing that photos have over videos is that there's no dialogue, there's no narration. And that's what makes it beautiful, because we as humans tend to naturally insert our own opinion, our own interpretation of what the story is. If I were to show you a quick succession of photos like this, you'd automatically be piecing together and drawing connections about what's happening and what the story is. And by the way, if you haven't seen this before, it's collected by Microsoft SenseCam, which you wear fashionably around your neck, just like this woman, and it takes a picture of whatever's in front of you about every 30 seconds. And so you can just imagine what type of data these photos can show you after just one day of wearing them. But for the rest of us not as blessed to have a SenseCam, there's already tools that exist in this space. So for example, Google Photos, which comes with every Android phone, it'll take the photos that are currently in your collection and represent them in a storyboard format, such as this. This, though, is your call to action. So what I would challenge you all to do is go out and take some photos. And if you don't have a camera, sketching and storyboarding works just fine. Comic strips are one of my personal favorite ways. So your goal is to go to where you think your users are, whatever your research is telling you, and to basically come back to your team, to your office, to your class with about 5 photos, show them to your team and ask about 5 questions. For example, who are your users really? What are they doing in these photos? What are your touch points? And I promise that by the end of this, you will become a more effective designer, researcher, and photographer. Thank you.